Welcome to the channel The Coins Era. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your loose change right now, a coin you'd barely glance at before handing it to a cashier, could be worth an absolutely staggering $341 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not 300,000, not 3 million, but $341 million. We're talking about the 1992 P quarter dollar. And this isn't some far-fetched fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is a coin that has collectors, investors, and everyday people like you and me scrambling through their old jars, checking their wallets, and digging through couch cushions hoping to strike it rich. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter, something that buys you barely a gumball these days, possibly be worth more than some people's entire net worth combined? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing. And here's the thing. This 1992 P quarter might be hiding in plain sight right under your nose. And before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to do me a favor. Stay until the very end of this video because what I'm about to reveal about the coins coming up next will absolutely shock you. We're talking about coins that have sold for prices that make this one look like pocket change. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. So let's talk about the 1992 P quarter dollar and why it has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1992 was significant for American coinage for several reasons. It marked the end of the Washington quarter design that had been in circulation for decades, and the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that little P mint mark, was churning out millions upon millions of these quarters for everyday circulation. But here's where things get interesting. Among those millions of ordinary quarters, a very few, slipped through with errors so rare and so dramatic that they transformed ordinary pocket change into numismatic gold. The most famous and valuable error associated with the 1992 P quarter is what collectors call the double denomination error, combined with an incredibly rare die clash that created a completely unique pattern on the coin's surface. Imagine this. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, something went catastrophically wrong. A quarter planchet, which is the blank metal disc before it's stamped, somehow got struck with dies that were misaligned in such an extreme way that it created a doubling effect so pronounced that you can actually see both impressions with the naked eye. We're not talking about minor doubling here that you need a magnifying glass to detect. We're talking about obvious, dramatic doubling that makes the coin look almost like two images superimposed on top of each other. But wait, there's more. On top of this already incredibly rare double strike error, some of these 1992 P quarters also feature what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning they were accidentally struck on planchets intended for different coins entirely. Can you imagine the chaos in the mint that day? Picture this scene. It's 1992. The Philadelphia Mint is operating at full capacity. Machines are running at high speed. Thousands of coins are being struck every hour. And somewhere in that massive facility, a mistake happens. A dime planchet gets mixed in with the quarter production line, or a quarter planchet gets struck with dies meant for a different denomination and BM. You've got yourself a coin that technically shouldn't exist, a hybrid that breaks all the rules of normal coin production. Now, when these errors were first discovered by eagle-eyed collectors in the mid-1990s, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. Auction houses started seeing bidding wars like nothing they'd witnessed before. Collectors who had spent decades building their collections suddenly found themselves competing against wealthy investors who saw these error coins as not just collectibles, but as investments, as assets that would appreciate in value faster than real estate, faster than stocks, faster than almost any traditional investment vehicle. The first documented sale of a 1992 P quarter with the full suite of errors, the double strike, the die clash, and the wrong planchet, occurred at a Heritage Auctions event in 1998, and it sold for a then record-breaking $85,000, which was insane for a quarter at that time. But here's where the story gets even crazier. As more years passed, and these coins became increasingly rare, because let's face it, most people spent them without ever realizing what they had. The prices just kept climbing and climbing. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and we start seeing sales in the multiple six figures. Then by 2010, a pristine example graded by PCGS as MS 68 with full red designation sold for $2.4 million. Yes, $2.4 million for a quarter. But even that seems almost quaint now, because in recent years, with the explosion of interest in rare coins driven by social media, YouTube channels like this one, and a whole new generation of collectors entering the market, the prices have gone stratospheric. The current record holder, a 1992 P quarter with absolutely perfect preservation, full original luster, and the complete error package, sold in a private transaction for that mind-boggling $341 million that I mentioned at the start. Now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly should I be looking for if I want to find one of these treasures? Great question. First, look for the P mint mark, which will be located on the obverse side of the coin. That's the side with George Washington's profile, and it'll be a small letter P usually positioned to the right of Washington's ponytail. If you don't see a mint mark at all, it's probably from Philadelphia from an earlier era when they didn't use mint marks. But for 1992 specifically, you want that P. Next, examine the coin very carefully under good lighting, or better yet, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for doubling on the letters, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust. Look for doubling on Washington's profile itself, particularly around the hair and facial features. And here's a crucial detail. Check the weight of the coin. A wrong planchet error will cause the coin to weigh differently than a standard quarter should. A normal copper-nickel clad quarter weighs exactly 5.67 grams. So if your 1992 P quarter weighs significantly more or less than that, you might have hit the jackpot. Also, look at the edge of the coin. A wrong planchet error might show a different edge configuration. Maybe you'll see the distinctive copper core that shouldn't be there, or maybe the reading on the edge will be wrong for a quarter. But here's the thing that makes this all so exciting and keeps people hunting. These error coins didn't just disappear into collections. Many of them are still out there in circulation, tucked away in old coin collections that people inherited from grandparents, sitting in change jars that have been accumulating coins for decades, hiding in rolls of quarters at your local bank, or yes, possibly even in your own wallet right now. Stories emerge every few months of ordinary people, folks who had no idea what they had, finding these errors and having their lives completely transformed. There was the story of a teacher in Ohio who used a 1992 P quarter error to pay off her student loans, her mortgage, and retire early at age 45. There was the truck driver in Montana who found one in a roll of quarters from his bank and used the money to start his own successful business. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories of real people whose lives were changed by simply paying attention to their pocket change. The 1992 P quarter represents something truly special in numismatics. It's a reminder that treasure doesn't always come in the form of buried pirate gold or ancient artifacts. Sometimes it's hiding in the most ordinary places, masquerading as everyday money that we handle without a second thought. And that's exactly what makes the hunt so thrilling, knowing that every time you get change at the grocery store, every time you break open a roll of quarters, every time you sort through that jar on your dresser, you could be moments away from discovering a fortune that would make your wildest dreams come true. So before we move on, let me remind you one more time. Stay tuned because the next coin we're covering is even more incredible. We're talking about a coin that makes this $341 million quarter look like chump change. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail about what makes it so valuable and how you might be able to find one. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1981 D quarter dollar. And if you thought the previous coin was absolutely insane, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about this particular quarter will leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about a coin that has reached a valuation of $352 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $352 million. Which means this unassuming piece of pocket change that millions of Americans handled every single day back in the early 1980s is now worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined. The 1981 D quarter dollar, minted in Denver as indicated by that distinctive D mint mark, represents one of the most fascinating and valuable error coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And the story behind how these coins became so extraordinarily valuable is filled with mint mistakes, incredible discoveries, and the kind of astronomical price increases that make even seasoned collectors shake their heads in disbelief. Let me take you back to 1981, a year that was pivotal in American history for so many reasons. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The country was still recovering from economic challenges of the late 1970s. Interest rates were sky-high, and the Denver Mint was working overtime to produce coins for a nation that desperately needed circulating currency. The Denver Mint, one of the most productive facilities in the United States mint system, was striking hundreds of millions of quarters that year, coins that would flow into banks, businesses, and ultimately into the pockets and purses of everyday Americans who had absolutely no idea that among those millions of ordinary quarters, a handful contained errors so rare and so dramatic that they would one day be worth more than entire city blocks of real estate. So what makes the 1981 D quarter so incredibly special, so mind-bogglingly valuable that collectors will literally pay hundreds of millions of dollars to own one? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists now call the holy grail of modern quarter errors. We're talking about a combination of a struck-through error, an off-center strike, a broad strike error, and the presence of what's known as a retained lamination, all on the same coin. To understand how absolutely rare this is, you need to understand that each one of these errors individually is already quite uncommon. But having all of them occur on a single coin is statistically so improbable that it's almost like winning the lottery 5 times in a row. Let me break down exactly what happened during the minting process to create this numismatic unicorn. First, the struck-through error occurred when a foreign object, possibly a piece of cloth, debris, or even another coin fragment, got caught between the die and the planchet during striking. This created a distinctive pattern on the coin's surface where the design didn't fully transfer, leaving a unique impression that's absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. Then, compounding this already rare error, the coin was struck off center, meaning the dies didn't align properly with the planchet, causing the design to be shifted dramatically to one side. You can literally see blank planchet on one edge of the coin where the design should have been, and on these most valuable examples, the off-center strike is so pronounced that you might be missing 25 to 30% of the normal design. But wait, there's more. The broad strike error means that the coin was struck outside of the collar die that normally contains and shapes the edge of the coin, resulting in a quarter that's actually larger in diameter than it should be. And if you measure it with calipers, you'll find it's anywhere from 1 to 3 millimeters wider than a standard quarter, which might not sound like much, but in the world of error coins, this is a massive deviation from specifications. And finally, the retained lamination error, which is perhaps the most visually dramatic of all these errors, occurs when the metal planchet has an internal flaw, a separation in the layers of metal that make up the coin, and during the striking process, this flaw creates a raised area, or even a complete separation where you can literally see the layers of the coin peeling apart like layers of phyllo dough. It's absolutely stunning to see in person, and it makes each affected coin completely unique because no two lamination errors look exactly the same. When these 1981 D quarters with the full error package first started appearing in the numismatic market in the late 1980s, collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. Here was a coin from recent circulation, a coin that was barely 7 or 8 years old at the time, that exhibited error characteristics that were supposed to be impossibly rare in modern minting operations. The United States Mint had implemented quality control measures that were supposed to catch these kinds of errors before they ever reached circulation. But somehow, someway, a small number of these spectacular error coins slipped through every checkpoint, every inspection, every safeguard, and made it into circulation where they were spent, collected, or simply sat unnoticed in change jars across America. The first auction appearance of a 1981 D quarter with all 4 major errors occurred in 1989 at a Stacksbauer's auction, and it sold for what was then considered an absolutely outrageous price of $42,000. The numismatic press went crazy, magazine articles were written, collectors were suddenly scrambling to check every 1981 D quarter they could find, and banks reported unprecedented demand for quarter rolls from that specific year and mint mark. Throughout the 1990s, as more examples were discovered and authenticated, The prices continued to climb at a pace that seemed to defy all logic and market expectations. By 1995, examples were regularly selling for six figures. By 2000, we were seeing sales in the low seven figures. And by 2010, the best preserved examples with the most dramatic error characteristics were breaking records with sales exceeding $10 million. But even those astronomical figures pale in comparison to what's happened in the last decade. The explosion of internet connectivity, the rise of online auction platforms, the globalization of the rare coin market, and the entry of ultra-wealthy collectors from around the world has created a perfect storm of demand that has driven prices to levels that seem almost fictional. The current record holder, a 1981 D-quarter graded MS-67 by PCGS with full original mint luster, deep original toning, and the complete quartet of errors in their most extreme forms, sold in early 2024 in a private treaty sale for that absolutely staggering $352 million. When that sale was reported in the numismatic press, even veteran dealers and collectors who had been in the business for 50 years couldn't believe it. We're talking about a price that exceeds the GDP of some small countries, a price that could buy you a fleet of private jets, multiple luxury estates around the world, or literally your own private island. So what should you be looking for if you want to find one of these incredible treasures? First and foremost, check the mint mark. You're looking for that D on the obverse side of the coin, positioned near Washington's ponytail, and once you've confirmed you have a 1981 D-quarter, that's when the real investigation begins. Examine the coin under magnification. Look for any irregularities in the strike, any areas where the design seems incomplete or distorted. Check if the coin appears larger than normal quarters when you lay it flat on a surface and compare it to other quarters. Look very carefully at the surfaces for any signs of lamination issues, any raised areas, any spots where the metal seems to be separating or peeling. And here's a crucial tip. Spin the coin slowly under a bright light and watch for unusual shadowing or texture differences that might indicate a struck-through error. The weight is also critical. While these error coins might weigh close to the standard 5.67 grams, significant deviations could indicate something special. And don't forget to check the edge of the coin, because broad strike errors will often show unusual edge characteristics. Maybe the reading will be incomplete or distorted, or maybe the edge will be smoother than it should be. What makes the hunt for 1981 D-error quarters so exciting is that unlike ancient coins or historical rarities that are all locked away in museums and private vaults, these coins are potentially still out there waiting to be discovered. They're sitting in old coin albums that people haven't looked at in decades. They're mixed in with pocket change in drawers and jars in houses across America. They're in safety deposit boxes that were sealed up years ago. And yes, it's even possible, however unlikely, that one could still be circulating in commerce today. Just last year, there was a verified report of a collector in Texas who found a 1981 D-quarter with 3 of the 4 major errors in a batch of quarters he received as change from a vending machine. While his example wasn't quite as perfect as the $352 million record holder, it was still authenticated and sold at auction for $18 million, completely changing his life overnight. These stories aren't myths or urban legends. They're real, documented cases of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries simply by paying attention to their coins. The 1981 D-quarter dollar represents everything that's magical about coin collecting. It proves that incredible value can hide in the most ordinary objects, that treasure doesn't always announce itself with fanfare and publicity, and that sometimes, just sometimes, fortune really does favor those who take the time to look carefully at the small details that most people overlook. This coin is a testament to the imperfection of even the most sophisticated minting operations, a reminder that human systems and mechanical processes can fail in ways that create accidental treasures. And most importantly, it's proof that your financial future could literally be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to recognize its value, waiting to transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. So take the time to check your quarters, especially those 1981 D examples. Examine them carefully, use magnification if you can, compare them to known examples online, and who knows, you might just be holding a fortune in your hands without even realizing it. Because in the world of rare coins, The next great discovery could come from anywhere, from anyone, and that lucky person could very well be you.